Okay. Yeah. Yes, everyone please check in. I'm gonna start sharing my screen right now. Sorry about that. All right. Can everyone see my screen okay? That's here? Yeah. All right, sounds good. So we'll go ahead and get started. So welcome everyone to using GitHub for project collaboration. We'll be exploring the possibilities of code hosting platforms here. And please check in if you have not yet. You can use the QR code or the link that's on here. We'll give like a minute to like get that set up. Yeah, so okay, so we'll keep going now. So what is GitHub and why do we want to use it? So GitHub is an online code hosting platform. This code hosting platform was created for version control and collaboration, and it lets you work with anyone on projects from anywhere you may be in the world. And it just makes it easier for developers to share code files and collaborate on open source projects. There are a lot, if you go exploring through GitHub, you'll find a lot of projects that are literally like, you can actually add like a file to it or like a comment, anything that you may find that you could suggest to another developer. It also serves, it doesn't fully serve as this form, but it does also serve as a social networking site where developers can openly share their work and network, which is how you can comment on other people's projects. Students even have the access and the chance to sign up for a student developer pack, which includes access to a variety of GitHub tools and access to tools from GitHub's partners. And I'll add a link in the chat so you can see those, see that pack. So our main hub for projects files are called repositories. This is where you will usually create your project, and it will contain pretty much everything your project needs, from folders, files, images, and data sets, and anything else you might have. Each repository can also hold a README file, which will hold any information that is necessary to know about how to run your project or what the project's about, in sense of basically a summary of your project. And it also offers, GitHub also offers a cheat sheet for syntax help in the file. And it also offers licensing options if you had like a project that needed to be licensed or anything. And at the bottom, you'll see like there's like a link to get a quick start on like maybe like a Hello World, as we all know Hello Worlds. So this is what a main repository looks like. This is just an example from my GitHub that I have. So as you can see, it'll at the top right, it shows you your account like username, what the name of your repository is. I just named it me. It shows me all the files that are available to me. So I can see like I have a public folder. I also have my README file that you can actually see at the bottom that says like, welcome, this is just a summary of my resume. And on the right, you can actually see like a little bit more of the about, and at the bottom is kind of like the most important, kind of like the bigger thing that to show. It just shows how much of your program or like how much of your project contains like languages. So as you can see, like my project is based off of JavaScript, HTML, and CSS here, and it will show you like the percentage that it will determine each language to be in. The next tool that also kind of like sounds a little bit weird is projects. So this is a tool for planning and tracking your work. This tool is it can be like an adaptable spreadsheet that merges with issues and pull requests, which we'll talk about later, that will help you keep track of your work. And so this is very customizable with multiple views and ways to visualize your work for your needs. And because this merges with your work, everything is pretty much synced automatically when it comes to receiving new problems and making updates. So in the next in the next two pictures. So this is just what the project looks like inside of my existing repository. It allows me to like either, it allows me to like see everything that's relevant, and it allows me to link a project, because projects can actually be separate from your repository here. And so this is what a project looks like on its own. I just called it Explore because it was something new. And so it can look like, it has 3 different ways that you can view it. And these are not the set ways. You can actually customize it even more if you'd like. So the main one that I'm showing here is a board. So and here it's just named as like a to-do, in progress, or a done set sections. And then you can also, at the top, if you see, there's also a list option and a roadmap option. The next topic that we'll also go over briefly is milestones. And so this tool is used to track progress of groups of issues or pull requests in a repository. It very much resembles a to-do list, like how you saw in projects, but it allows you to see what needs to be done first and what has also been completed, with the ability of prioritizing certain things. You can see a description of what milestones look like, with like its due date, completion percentage, and a list of open and closed issues or pull requests that are connected to this milestone. It doesn't always mean just one and one. It can be more. And so here is just a picture of an example in my repository again of where I can go. So underneath issues in my repository, I can click on milestones and add a new issue and a new milestone as well. And then like the same thing for pull requests. I can also add milestones there, and I can just go in there and make new ones. If you were to, once you start making a couple more, this is what it could look like based on like how you set it up. This is just one example of how you can customize everything. So this one's just like showing how to tidy up documentation. And it shows you how close it is to being completed, how many are open. It shows that 4 are open at the moment, and then 5 were already done. Now the bigger part of repositories is issues. So this is basically a comment with some extra features added. By creating an issue, you track ideas, feedback, tasks, or bugs inside of your repository. And there are many different ways to create them. Either you can do it on your repository directly, you can do it on like GitHub desktop or mobile, or even using command prompts with using Git. But that we won't really talk about the Git format right now. And another thing you can also do is also disable issues if you don't want to receive any on a personal project or a project you make public, but you just want people to view. You don't want any suggestions. And so here, Flora is showing us on how like you can create a new issue just by clicking new issue. And then Flora, do you want to talk a little bit more about this actually?
Oh, so when you click on like create issues, this is what pops up. You could like name like the task you want to do, leave like description, and also on the right side you could also like assign the issue to someone. Could even like put this task into like a project or into a milestone.
And this is what it looks like once it's fully made to be an issue on a project. The next thing is pull requests as well. So this is just for proposing changes to a repository. When you want to offer a change or you just want to let yourself know of like a change that could happen in your repository, you create what's called a pull request. So this request is then proposed as a new branch. So what we mean by like a new branch is that like technically there's only like the main branch where the repository is completely where it's like, let's say like all the approved work that you have, everything that's like okay to go. When you make a pull request, it separates it as like, let's say branch 1. And so this branch is something that the owner of the repository will have to look over and decide whether to accept into its main branch or to leave it on the side and just not approve it. And so only once the change gets approved, then what will happen is that branch 1 will actually get merged into main and just become the main branch once again. And branch 1 won't exist anymore. The main part of this whole event is actually with collaborators again. So when you go to add collaborators, you can do it right into your repository. And so one thing to remember is that like when you add collaborators to your repository, only the repository owner has access to the repository settings. So just being a collaborator will only allow you to, like, let's say, make branches, pull request issues, everything that normally happens, but you just won't be able to make any changes to the repository itself, like whether it's private, whether it's public, and anything else that involves that.
And one of the features that GitHub has is like cloning. So if you want to, I guess, let's say you want to transfer your code from GitHub to your local machine, like you could simply just like create like a local copy of it, so that way you could be able to, I guess, work on the code directly on your ID and to put any change you made back to that same GitHub repository. And this is not just only you that get to like clone, your collaborator can also clone it and be able to work on that code on their own local machines and can push back to that same repositories. So there's many ways to clone it. One of the common ways to use it, the common method, is to use a command prompt. So to do this, you would like open up any like repositories, for example, let's say me, and you want to go to the green button, say code. You click that, and under the local to SSH, there's the SSH key URL they provided for you. You want to copy that. Next, you want to like open up like any like command prompt, like let's say get bash, or like let's say in your IDE, your VS Code, you can open up a new terminal. You want to use this following command, get clone, and then whatever your SSH key URL is. By doing so, the computer will start cloning your repository from GitHub, and now is living in your local machine. Of course, there is another way of like easier way of doing it, which I like to call the VS Code way. So in your VS Code, so let's say you open up your VS Code, like you go to your source control, so it look like this simple right here. And supposedly, if you haven't like connected your GitHub to your VS Code, do that first. And by connecting your VS Code to GitHub, it should appear like this, will allow you to open file and clone repository. So you want to click on the clone repository, then this thing will pop up saying clone from GitHub. Click on that, and there are so many like repositories, either from your account or from your project or your collaborator repository you have access to. You can just like click on any one of them that you wish to clone, and it will ask you, oh, where do you want to place this in your computer? So you can put it in your, let's say, in your folder GitHub right here. Place it in there, and it will ask you to, if you want to open it up in your VS Code, and voila. Now you have like the access, have all the codes, the files from the GitHub repository. And if you're wondering, okay, so I made some changes in my local machines, and now I want to like transfer those back into the GitHub repository. How do I do that? Well, we would use these three following commands. That is like get add, get commit, and get push. Oh, get add done. Yes. So what does get add dot do? So essentially telling your computer, hey, can you get all of the file that you want to like save change in your local repository, which is in your local machine, local computer. And if you want like some certain like file to commit, like say you only want to choose one out of many files in your IDE to be saved and to be committed, you can use get add and implement like right now like the exact file name that you want to save change to. Next, you want to do get commit -m. So get commit essentially telling the computer, hey, now save all the change you have made to your code onto your local machines. And the -m is kind of used as a flag that allows you to like write something like a message to talk about, okay, what do you have made changes to your code? Let's say I changed my my index at HTML. I will just like update my index HTML right here inside those parentheses. And once you make the change, save the changes in your local repository, now you can do something called get push, where they can now like transfer your code from your local machine to your GitHub account. So it now lives there. So kind of using some visual right here. So let's say like I create like a new file called the index.html where I kind of just wrote some code right here, simple as that. And then I open up a terminals right down here where I enter in the commands dot get add dot get commit, making my first commit, my message here, and then once it saves the changes, now I do get push, and it should like tells you that okay, now is now being pushed my code to GitHub. So this is before you make like any push or commit to your code to GitHub, and then afterward you now have like a new file, the index.html now living on your GitHub.
And then the other way to actually work out, like, let's say maybe your Git commands, maybe you don't have the SSH key, or maybe just your terminal was not fully working at that, like at the moment. The other nice feature that GitHub offers is actually GitHub Desktop. And so this is basically an application that brings together almost everything about using GitHub. So it allows you to clone, commit, and push in one area, and you can see the changes you made compared to your current live repository on GitHub, on your GitHub account, with your local machines changes, and it'll show it before you push it. And since you were logged into your GitHub account, you have direct access to all the current repositories that you've ever used, and you can clone it right away. So here, this is what mine looks like in, let's say, my me repository. It looks like just another application. And so as you can see, it shows you like all the changes that have been done and like in whatever file you're currently in. So like, as you can see, like the green is just the changes that have happened, and then the red's everything that's gotten deleted. And you can see like the current branch you're in as well. And like, let's say pull origin. Pull origin is basically just, is there anything from the actual, from the GitHub online that I don't have at the moment, and allows you to pull it. The only thing is that once you pull from online into your GitHub desktop, you will have to like go through manually and like see what changes you want to keep and which ones you don't want to like keep from your local versus your GitHub. This is what it looks like once you click on the drop-down arrow in your current repository. Like it shows you all like the recent repositories, and then all your repositories from like, let's say, another organization or anything else you used. And then once you click the little add button that is up here, it'll tell you to like clone a repository, and you have 3 options to go from here. You have github.com, where it just shows you your repositories that you have access to. You have GitHub Enterprise, which is something that will probably not apply to many of us unless you have like your own organization. And then you have just a URL format for a completely new repository in a newer that you just don't have access to at the moment. And this is mostly the basic one for anything that's outside of your account. So now we've kind of covered basically everything. So this is kind of like the time that we've been waiting for to like make your own repo. So the first thing you want to do is go to your GitHub, title, and like create your first repo titled "This is me," or if you like something else, you can go ahead and do that. So let's go into our GitHub. I'll be going into mine if you'd like to follow along or split the views. So this is my current repository here. And so in my repositories, like I just have a list of everything I've done. So you can just go here and click new. And so you can just name it something random. Like I'm just gonna name it "This is me." And I'm gonna keep it public just so that if you want to see it, you can maybe just look me up and find it. And then I'll add a README file, although it probably won't be populated at the moment. And then I'll just click create repository. So now that this is created, let's go ahead. If you don't have, let's see, if you don't have a GitHub desktop. Oh, okay. Okay, thanks. So you can go ahead and download GitHub desktop if you are able to. If not, you can, again, just keep following along. Maybe just the visuals will be more than sufficient for you. Let me delete this one. So now that we are able to, and let's go into GitHub desktop on my end. So now that I'm here, it's just telling me that I don't have much else to do. So I'm just going to click add and clone repository. Let's see. I should have just created it. So right here, it's right here actually. So I'm going to go ahead and just clone it. If you want to clone it a different way, you can also always just go in and copy the HTTPS version, or you can also copy the SSH depending on which one you are using. I've always used HTTPS. I haven't used SSH yet like Flora has. So you can go ahead with whichever one you want. But I'm going to stick with just copying it from my GitHub in here. So right here it is. This is me. I'm going to clone it. As we can see, it's taking. And now I'm in the current repository of that inside of my GitHub desktop. And the nice thing, there's literally a button that will allow you to open it in Visual Studio. So I'm just going to go ahead and click that button as well. But if you want it, also another thing, I don't know why this is happening. Okay, there we go. So another thing is that like, once you sign in down here at the bottom, right here, I'm signed in on my GitHub directly. So I can actually also access my files through here, like how Flora was showing us. So right now I'm in this repository, but like, let's say if I were to like open a new window, how she says clone repository, clone from GitHub, again, they all pop up right here. So that's just another format to have. So let's go ahead and just make a just a simple HTML file that you will be able to see. So I'm just going to say home HTML. And right now it's empty. So let's go back to the slides. I actually have a slide next to. So once you've gotten to this stage, right here, there's just like a setup script. I'm just going to go ahead and copy that because I had that before. I will post a link to my GitHub so you can actually access this file right away. Let's go back. So now I'm just going to paste it and I'll just save it here. And as you can see, it's letting me know that there has been a change to my repository. And so it's asking me like if I want to commit yet. I'm just going to change my name here to Asset. And then here, let's see if I can actually go through this one. Or no. So I can commit through the VS Code part. But another, like we said, like GitHub Desktop actually takes care of that for you. So as you can see, like it's letting me know that this has been changed in the repository. So here is where I would type my message where it says create home.html. I will just name it as starter code. And once I commit to main here, it is committing to my local repository. But the last part is the push. So we need to push origin here. It can let us know here, or we can go up here to push origin. There's two options. So I'm just going to click the top one. And so now it's telling me that there's no changes anywhere that are expected. So we can go back to your main repository and refresh it. And now the starter code has been added. And it'll let you know how long ago it was added. So right now it's saying that it was literally just added now. The README file was added 4 minutes ago. The next part is actually like, okay, I have these changes, but how can I actually view my HTML file? In that case, we want to go to settings here. And then we go down to this pages tab. And this will essentially make like a web page for you to use and be able to view your work. So in the branch section where it says GitHub Pages is currently disabled, what we want to do is click on the dropdown of none and then go to main to say that like this is where you're going to get all the information from. And then once you save it, it's going to take a second to reload and give you like the actual website. But that's why we actually made another one before this, just so that we could have a different, I think that was yours, Flora? Was that one yours? Ah, I think I have it somewhere here. Let's see if this one reloaded actually. Okay, let's just go back to this. Sorry, everyone. Okay. Yeah. All right, yes. It does take a second, so that's the only thing to be worried about. If you're expecting to see the changes right away, it will take 1 second. So we did make another one. Or no, sorry. This is the wrong one too. It's the other one. Let me see. This one has already reloaded. Okay, sorry. Okay, now it's loaded here. And so when once you click visit site, it's going to take you to the actual README file. But if you actually want to view your HTML file, all you would have to do is kind of add it to your URL here. And then, as you can see, it shows name, UIC, major, and interest. I don't think I actually made the changes. I didn't. So something that you will notice here is because it'll say name, UIC, major, and interest, even though you saw me write my name down there. But it was just because I didn't save the file that change wasn't committed to the GitHub. And so that's something to always remember with VS Code. Always save your, yeah. And then you can also auto save actually down if you click file. Sorry about that. Yeah. But that is just how you can get started with pages. And then I'll just show you, and then I'll also show you collaborators. Collaborators is here underneath access. And so you will have to like confirm your password and everything because it's just the settings page. They don't want you to make any unnecessary changes. And then right here, it says that I haven't invited anyone yet. So right here, I can just search up someone from like their username, their full name, or their email, and it'll send them an invitation link, like how Flora did right here. And you can once you click view invitation, you will accept it, and then you will have access to that repo, and you can go ahead and make your own branch from there. And that is how you would add a collaborator. And that is pretty much it. We were actually surprised by how quick this was. Is there anything that anyone wants to look at?
I should do some final notes.
Okay, yeah. Yeah.
So, if you want to-
Yeah, I can mute. 1 second. Let me just all right. We'll pass it over to Fabulous Angel over here.
Can everyone hear me well?
Yeah, let me mute myself.
So this might seem overkill for depending if you're like a freshman or something. But when you get into your higher level classes where group work is actually an option available to you on your projects, this will turn out to be useful instead of like, I don't know who zips up code and like emails it to people anymore. But Git and using these features on GitHub make group work exponentially easier. So maybe in CS 242, you group up with another person and you work in pairs. This might still seem like overkill, but when you get into CS classes like CS 440, I think, where you work in a group of work and you're given a document and you have to start from scratch, and like it's very detailed with how your work has to be. these features do become very valuable. So you can, in a group, or you can assign issues to each other. You can, so typically what you'll do is you'll create a branch from the main branch, and then everyone works in their own branches, and then you make pull requests into the main branch from your branch, and that's typically how group work is done. Then you can use things like the GitHub project board, where you can outline to-do items. We'll have another event on the GitHub project board later on this week, hopefully. So we didn't go too in depth on that, but that's a really useful GitHub feature that GitHub specifically has. And then, like we overviewed with VS Code and GitHub Desktop, it makes it really easy to view pull requests specifically in GitHub Desktop and VS Code. So it visualizes what people changed from their branch to the main branch. So you can specifically see what code was changed. And using Git in general is a really helpful thing in doing collaborative work with code. Because if people code, or if people can use good commit messages, then you can see what specifically has changed between each commit. One final note on GitHub Desktop, that URL thing, so you can, GitHub Desktop can be used specifically for GitHub, but as you saw with that URL, you have people using GitLab, which is another competing thing. You can clone repositories into that with GitHub Desktop, but you might not have the full feature set of GitHub, things with GitHub files. That's all the closing notes I have for now. Is there anything you?
No, oh, sorry. No, I honestly don't. Nice. Yeah. No, honestly, I don't have anything to add. But yeah, are there any questions about like this whole overview that we've had on GitHub? In person or virtual?
So I see a question in the
Oh, in the chat?
Yeah, so something that might arise with people between branches and leveraging different branches between each other are things called Git conflicts or commit conflicts. Those are very annoying, and that's just, I don't have any advice for you. That's an industry-wide gripe with Git, having to deal with conflicts. But so something I will suggest to help you with Git conflicts is in GitHub Desktop and VS Code. Whenever you do have a Git conflict, when you pull from your repositories, if you're in VS Code, it'll first off warn you, and then it'll pull a view where it shows one half of the screen with your code, and then the other half of the screen with their code. And you can go in line by line to see like what is conflicting, and then you can either accept or reject some of the changes to resolve those conflicts. And in GitHub Desktop, they do a bit of a similar thing. I forget what specifically it is, but I like resolving Git conflicts on VS Code. But that's what I would suggest for having to resolve those Git conflicts. Any other questions? So, do we want to put the system?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
Well, I love the one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I love the secret. If there aren't any other questions, oh, actually, before everyone leaves, I will give you all one last. So, one second, can you pull this link up on your shared screen?
Yeah.
So, a good way to keep track of your changes. So you'll get alerts on the GitHub website whenever your people. Do you want to use like?
Oh, Sorry, I keep forgetting that. Okay.
So you'll get alerts on the GitHub website, but you won't get them anywhere else. So maybe if you have that app, you'll get alerts for like commit changes. But one useful thing that you can do is this thing called webhooks. So if you scroll down towards the end, Discord has this feature called webhooks where you can essentially connect, or GitHub sends messages to a certain Discord URL that you can. So if you go to that link, set it up. But essentially, whenever someone does a commit or opens an issue or does a change in their repository, GitHub will send a message to your Discord channel. So it's an easy way of getting updates if you're a Discord power user, or you use Discord as your main way of getting notifications. So I'll leave that link if you want to set it up. We didn't cover it here, but I'll leave that to you guys as an extra thing to explore. Any other closing remarks? Is that covered?
Oh, yeah.
I was looking at something currently I was looking at the project right now. So so the question is, how do you compare me to a project? Are they exhausting for that existing projects? Oh, us, guys. Not at the moment. So we like to leave everyone with like this. So right here we went through a demo of how to create a GitHub repo. We haven't done any community projects yet. That's been on our to-do list for a while, but it's organizing that is a bit of a challenge. So we like workshops on how to use. Yes, yeah. So the last one we did an intro to web dev, but we went through a demo and then everyone. So that's kind of the focus for GDSC at the moment, where all of our workshops simply we and that continue to work on their own. But to answer your question, at the moment we have projects with GDSC, but that is something we like. And if you're in the Discord, which is all of you are, whenever we do get that, we'll announce it. Any other questions?
Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, hello. Do you have a question?
Sure. Yeah. So something that when I asked that question about the merge conflicts. So what is the advice to be made for like if I'm working with my partner on a project for a class project, and should we maybe be working on the same thing if we're working on something at the same exact time? Because those push, when we did like a merge, we had merge conflicts, and then the other person couldn't pull anything or they couldn't merge anything. Maybe they should have pulled instead. I'm not really sure. I guess what advice could you give on if you're working on something at the same exact time? Should someone be working on a different file if that's the case, or should we only be doing pushes and pulls and not merges? Is merge maybe something that messed us up? I'm not really sure. We're new to it, and that's why we attended this, hoping that it would help and seeing how to do something if we're working on something at the same exact time.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So, yeah, you might find yourself working on the same thing at the same time, and then push and then pull, and then you're in the same file. So typically, so this is kind of a Git philosophy sort of thing instead of GitHub, but I'll answer that question. So another way that people typically will split up work is working on different features. So that's to minimize conflicts, or if you, this is also a coding philosophy thing, where if you separate and compartmentalize your code in an efficient, well-organized manner, then you tend to reduce conflicts. So like if you're the kind of person that writes all their code in like the main function and doesn't split their files, and that seems to happen a lot, and that's why it's suggested compartmentalize your code. But if you find yourself, oh, I'm following good coding practices, and I'm still getting these conflicts. Another way to split up branches is again to distribute amongst yourself different features. So that way, if you're working on the exact same thing, conflicts like that. And if you do get conflicts, then again, you're gonna have to resort back to those tips that I gave you about maybe pulling it up in VS Code, going line by line, see what you can accept or reject to then resolve that conflict and then commit and then push the there. See back up. Does that answer your question?
I have more to add to it. I have something else to say to him too.
Oh, it's flat on.
And Steve, if you, so this actually did happen to me over my internship. I tried something and like I also tried merging and it completely messed up that I couldn't run it on my end. So the way that it had to be, or at least the way that I ended up fixing it was that I kind of just went back on my history of pushing and not on pushing, on pulling. I went back to one of my previous versions and then after that, I just ended up pulling the newest version on the actual repo that my partner submitted. And then that actually ended up fixing the whole issue. Like whoever is working, have them fully push into the into like the actual GitHub itself. And then you pull that version back and then just make your changes from there. And then just let your partner know that you're making those changes and to maybe not make any changes for the moment until you push your version on there. So it's gonna be a lot of overlooking each other's code. Maybe you guys can go back to like a previous version that you guys have where both of them were working on both of your ends. And then after that, just add the details back in a little by little, because same thing happened to me and I had to just kind of like start off from their code and then just add my code back to theirs.
Yeah, perfect. What you just said right there nailed it. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Sounds good. Great. I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah, so if you don't have changes in your branch, then yeah, you could do it with us. Just get rid of what you did and then pull it. Yeah. Any other questions?
Yes.
Well, in that case, thank you everyone for coming. We'll stay around here in person for a bit. Check in if you didn't. We'll do a recap. We recorded this, right?
Yeah, I recorded it.
We'll update the event page and also post in the events channel with the recording and the presentation stuff.
Yeah, it's nice to see everyone. Have a good week. Thank you.
Have a great day. Thank you. Special shout out to everyone in person.
I know, it's I was walking through that.
It's always nice to see you.
Yes.
And if you have any other questions, feel free to post in the Discord and we'll look at it.
Yeah.
Have a great day, everyone.
If you have any other questions on anything else too, like feel free to ask.